Perfect. Let's now put everything together into a great, deep, detailed summary of the Charter Act of 1853, but still in simplest language like the best teacher notes. Charter Act, deep, detailed summary. India Company was ruling India not on its own, but under a licensed charter given by the British Parliament. This charter had to be renewed every 20 years. By 1853, the license was about to expire, and Parliament should company continue? If yes, under what new rules? Problems in 1853. 1. Double government in London. 2. Authorities controlled Indian affairs. Court of Directors, company bosses. Board of Control, British government supervisors. Result equals delays, confusions, wastage of money. 2. Lawmaking system outdated. The Charter Act of 1833 created one lawmaking system in Calcutta, but by 1853, India, Sindh, Punjab, Burma, princely states annexed. Old machineries too small for a bigger empire. 3. Governor-General also, Governor of Bengal, one man doing two jobs, risk of bias in favour of Bengal. 4. New territories, Sindh 1843, Punjab 1849, Pegu in Burma, and many Indian princely states had been annexed by Lord Dalhousie. They needed to be properly integrated into administration. 5. Demand for decentralization and Indian participation. Provinces wanted more power, not everything controlled from Calcutta. Early voices in Britain, like Lord Derby in 1852, said Indians should slowly be given a share in running their own internal affairs. Number 2. What the Act of 1853 did. A. No fixed time limit. Earlier charters extended companies' rule for 20 years. In 1853, Parliament renewed it but gave no time period, meaning the company was now on probation. Its rule could be ended any time. This was a warning. Your days may be numbered. B. Separated legislative and executive functions. Before, Governor-General's small council did both administration and lawmaking. 1853, council was expanded for lawmaking. Legislative Council equals Governor-General plus regular council plus additional members, mainly from provinces. For the first time, India got a separate lawmaking body. C. Provincial representation in lawmaking. Additional members came from provinces like Bombay, Madras, Bengal, and northwestern provinces. They were not elected by the people, but nominated. Still, it was the first step towards decentralization. Provinces began to have a voice in central lawmaking. D. Indian civil services open to competition. Earlier, top jobs were given by patronage, recommendations, favoritism. 1853, civil services thrown open through competitive exams, merit-based. In theory, Indians could compete. In practice, exams were held in London, syllabus favoured British students. But this change planted the seed for Indians in higher services. First Indian, Satyendranath Tagore, passed in 1863. E. Governor-General of India freed from Bengal charge. Act allowed appointment of a separate Lieutenant Governor for Bengal. Implemented in 1854, Governor-General could now focus only on all India affairs. F. Court of Directors power reduced. The Court of Directors was reorganized and reduced in size. Most importantly, it lost the power to appoint civil servants since jobs now came through exams. Its prestige and influence weakened. G. Law codification resumed. The Act created the Second Law Commission, 1853, to continue the work of framing a common code of laws. This effort later produced the Indian Penal Code, 1860, and other major legal codes. Number 3. Importance of the Act. 1. Company on probation. No fixed term showed Parliament had doubts about continuing company rule. 2. Birth of modern legislation. Separation of legislative and executive functions was the foundation of India's modern legislative councils. 3. Merit over patronage. Competitive exams for civil services marked the start of professional bureaucracy. 4. Provincial input. First small step towards decentralization and later Indian participation in lawmaking. 5. Weakened companies' control in London. Court of Directors lost major powers. 6. Prepared ground for future reforms. After the 1857 revolt, the 1853 system easily shifted to Crown control in 1858. 4. Easy memory keys. 1853 equals 3 S's. Separate legislature, lawmaking body created. Service by exams. ICS competitive exams started. Separate Bengal, Leet governor appointed. Probation, not promotion. Company got no fixed renewal. Its future was shaky. Number 5. In one line, the Charter Act of 1853 was the last renewal of the company's charter, put the company on probation, separated lawmaking from administration, opened civil services to competition, allowed provincial representation in lawmaking, and prepared the ground for ending company rule in 1858. Would you like me to now create a visual story version, like a comic strip with characters, company uncle, parliament judge, governor-general boss, provincial voices? That would make this unforgettable forever. Excellent. Now let me give you the deepest, most detailed summary of the provisions of the Charter Act of 1853, written in a way that is still simple, clear and complete. This won't just be a repeat. I'll connect all the dots, explain the hidden meaning, and show the historical importance. Charter Act of 1853. Provisions. Companies' rule renewed, but without a fixed term. Earlier Charter Acts, like 1793, 1813, 1833, renewed the company's rule over India for 20 years at a time. In 1853, for the first time, the renewal had no fixed time limit. The Act said, "The East India Company will continue to govern India in trust for Her Majesty, her heirs and successors, until Parliament decides otherwise." Deep meaning. This meant the company was now only a trustee caretaker, not the real owner. It was a signal that the British Crown had the ultimate authority. Parliament could now end companies' rule any time. And indeed, just 5 years later, after the revolt of 1857, companies' rule was abolished in 1858. Salaries of the Board of Control officers. The Board of Control, created by Pitt's India Act of 1784, supervised all company affairs from London. Under this Act, the salaries of its members and secretary would be fixed by the British government. But the money to pay them came from the company's revenues, i.e. from India. Deep meaning. The Crown controlled the policy, decided salaries. The company bore the cost, paid from Indian revenues. This was another way to keep the company financially weak while strengthening the Crown's control. Reduction in Court of Directors. The Court of Directors, the company's board in London, was the main decision-making body. Earlier, 24 members. Now, 18 members only. Out of these, 6 members were nominated by the Crown. Deep meaning. This reduced the company's independence in running Indian affairs. It increased the Crown's direct presence inside the company's highest governing body. Slowly, the Crown was eating into the company's power. End of patronage. Introduction of open competition. Before 1853, the Court of Directors gave jobs in India to their friends, family or nominees. This was called patronage. The Act ended this privilege. Civil services were now to be filled through open competitive examinations. The rule, no discrimination on the basis of race, religion, birth or caste. Deep meaning. This was a major reform. It opened government jobs to merit-based selection. In theory, Indians could also appear for these exams. In practice, the exams were held only in London, so only a handful of wealthy and determined Indians could take them. First successful Indian was Satyendranath Tagore in 1863. This laid the foundation of the Indian Civil Services, ICS, later known as the steel frame of British rule. Macaulay Committee of 1854. To enforce this new exam system, a special committee was set up in 1854. President, Lord Macaulay, famous for introducing English education in India. This committee designed the syllabus, subjects and system for the exams. Deep meaning. This made the competitive exam a real system, not just an idea. It was a huge turning point in Indian administration because civil servants were the backbone of British rule. Power to create new presidencies and change boundaries. The Court of Directors was given the power to create new presidencies, alter the boundaries of old ones, add new territories into them. Deep meaning. This provision recognized that the British were rapidly expanding in India. They needed flexibility to reorganize administration for new territories. Example, after conquests, Sindh, Punjab and Oudh had to be managed properly. Punjab made a separate lieutenant governorship in 1859. Using the above provision, in 1859, Punjab was made into a separate province with its own lieutenant governor. Deep meaning. Punjab was recently annexed, 1849, after the Anglo-Sikh Wars. It was politically and militarily very important. Giving it a separate head ensured direct attention and efficient administration. Law Commission in England. Earlier, there was an Indian Law Commission in India, 1834, which had made some drafts for codifying Indian laws. By 1853, it had stopped working. The new Act gave the Crown the power to set up a law commission in England. This commission would examine the earlier drafts from India, recommend new laws and legal reforms. Deep meaning, this shifted the power of lawmaking away from India to England. It was the next step in creating a uniform legal system for India. Example, the work of these commissions led to laws like the Indian Penal Code, 1860, Criminal Procedure Code and Civil Procedure Code. The Charter Act of 1853 in one big picture. It weakened the East India Company by removing its job-giving power, reducing its directors, making it a trustee of Indian territories. It strengthened the Crown by giving it more say in administration, allowing it to nominate directors, controlling the lawmaking process. It introduced big reforms: merit-based competitive exams, foundation of modern bureaucracy, systematic legal codification, reorganization of territories. It was the last Charter Act. Just 5 years later, the Revolt of 1857 happened. In 1858, company rule ended and India came directly under the Crown. Nash, quick recap, super simple points. 1. Company allowed to rule India until Parliament says otherwise, no fixed term. 2. Board of Control's salaries fixed by British Gov, but paid by company from India's money. 3. Court of Directors cut from 24-18, 6 nominated by Crown. 4. No more job patronage, civil services through competitive exams. 5. Macaulay Committee 1854, set up exam system, foundation of ICS. 6. Directors could create new presidencies and redraw boundaries. 7. Punjab made separate province with Lieutenant Governor 1859. 8. Crown could create law commission in England, basis of Indian legal codes. In short, the Charter Act of 1853 was the final step before the end of company rule. It turned the company into a caretaker, gave the Crown more direct control, and introduced the modern administrative system, civil services plus codified laws. Would you like me to now make a giant chart/diagram that shows all the provisions visually, like a mind map with arrows, so you can instantly revise everything at a glance? Summary of this whole piece, the Charter Act of 1853 legislative changes. I'll make it crystal clear, step by step, with full explanations, extra context, and memory-friendly structure. Deep, detailed summary of the passage. Charter Act of 1853 legislative features. Act 1, background context. Before 1853, the Governor-General's Council in India was the main ruling body. This council had 2 roles combined: executive role, running the government, day-to-day administration; legislative role, making laws for India. But both functions were mixed, which made lawmaking less transparent and too concentrated in the hands of a few. The Charter Act of 1853 tried to separate executive and legislative functions more clearly. Law member made full member. Earlier, the law member was there only to advise on legal matters. In 1853, he became a full member of the Governor-General's Executive Council. This meant law and justice got a more permanent, respected place in decision-making. Nasha 3. Addition of 6 extra members for legislative purposes only. When the council worked as a legislative council, lawmaking mode, 6 extra members were added. 1. Chief Justice of Calcutta Supreme Court, top judge. 2. Puisne Judge of Calcutta Supreme Court, a junior judge. 3. 4 provincial representatives, 1 from Bengal, 1 from Madras, 1 from Bombay, 1 from northwestern provinces. But these representatives were not common people. They had to be senior East India Company civil servants with at least 10 years of experience. This gave the appearance of provincial participation, but in reality, it was still controlled by British officials. No Indians were included. 4. Governor-General's power to add more members. The Act gave the Governor-General power to appoint 2 more civil servants as members, but this power was never actually used. 5. Procedure made like the British Parliament. The working style of the Council was modelled on the British Parliament system. Questions could be asked, policies could be debated, But the Executive Council still held veto power, meaning even if everyone agreed on a law, the ruling executive could reject it. So while it looked more democratic, the real power remained with the executive. 6. Changes in lawmaking process. The Act made 3 big improvements. 1. Oral discussions. Before 1853, discussions were only written, not spoken. Now debates were oral, like real discussions. 2. Select committees. Instead of one single person examining bills, now small committees did the review, making lawmaking more systematic. 3. Public business. Earlier, lawmaking was secret. Now it became open to the public, creating transparency. 7. Significance. This was the first step towards opening up lawmaking in India, bringing it closer to parliamentary practices. It was not yet democratic, since Indians were still excluded and British officials held veto power, but it introduced important habits of governance, debate, committees, publicity, and questioning, which later became essential features of Indian politics. Final condensed cheat sheet, to remember easily. Charter Act of 1853 legislative features. 1. Separation of functions, executive versus legislative, clearer than before. 2. Law member became full member of Governor-General's Council. 3. 6 new legislative members, Chief Justice, Puis Judge, 4 provincial reps, all company officials. 4. Governor-General could add 2 more members, never used. 5. Council worked like British Parliament, questions plus debates allowed, but executive could veto. 6. Lawmaking reforms, oral debates, select committees, public proceedings. 7. Importance, step towards parliamentary-style governance, but still controlled by British, no Indian participation. In essence, the Charter Act of 1853 created India's first separate legislative council, made lawmaking more open and systematic, but kept power in British hands. It was a trial run of parliamentary practices in India, paving the way for later reforms, like Indian Councils Act 1861. Would you like me to also make a timeline flowchart of this, showing step-by-step changes visually, like a memory map? Nice. Here's a single, deep but very clear summary of the Charter Act of 1853, written in the simplest language possible and organized so you can remember and use it easily. Short one-line summary. The Charter Act of 1853 was the last law that let the East India Company run India. It cleaned up how India was governed, separating lawmaking from running the government, giving Bengal its own governor, so the Governor-General could focus on India as a whole, introducing limited civil service reform, and making legislative work more like the British Parliament, but it did not give real power to Indians. Main points, deep but simple. 1. Last charter, no fixed time limit. Earlier Charter Acts renewed company rule for set periods, usually 20 years. 1853 removed a fixed time limit. The company would govern until the British Parliament said otherwise. Meaning, company rule continued, but Parliament kept full control and flexibility. 2. Administrative change. Separate governor for Bengal. Previously, the Governor-General often also acted as the Governor of Bengal, 2 jobs in one. 1853 created a separate governor for the Bengal presidency. Lord Dalhousie, Gov. Gen. 1848 to 1856, was the first to have an independent charge, i.e. not also Governor of Bengal. Effect clearer administrative roles, Governor-General could focus on the whole subcontinent. 3. Legislative reforms, clearer separation of executive and legislature. The Governor-General's Council had both run the government, executive, and made laws, legislature. 1853 strengthened the split. Law member, legal expert, became a full member of the council. When the council met as a legislative council, 6 extra members joined. Chief Justice of Calcutta, a Poison judge, junior judge, and 4 provincial representatives, Bengal, Madras, Bombay, northwestern provinces. Those provincial representatives had to be senior East India Company civil servants with at least 10 years' service. Procedural changes. Oral debates, select committees to examine bills, and public proceedings replaced secret, written business. But the Executive Council still had the veto, could reject any law. 4. Civil service reform, in principle. The Act supported the idea of open competitive examinations for recruitment to the civil service, merit-based entry. In practice, most exams were in London, so Indians found it hard to compete immediately. Still, this was a major shift toward meritocracy. Why Britain changed things? Simple reasons. Efficiency and clarity. Separate roles make administration smoother. Parliamentary influence. Make Indian governance resemble British parliamentary practice. More order and legitimacy. Central control. Even with debates and committees, real power stayed with British officials and Parliament. Preparation. Removing a fixed term gave the British government freedom to change the arrangement later, which they did after 1857. Limitations. What it did not do. No real Indian representation. Provincial seats were filled by experienced company officials, not by Indians or popular representatives. Executive dominance remained. The Executive Council kept veto power, so legislative improvements were limited. Civil service reform was partial. Open competition was a big idea, but practical barriers, location of exams, travel, cost, limited Indian entry in the short term. Company rule still intact. The Act did not transfer power to the Crown. That happened only after the revolt of 1857, then Government of India Act 1858. Immediate and long-term effects. Immediate, more formal legislative procedures, oral debates, committees, administrative clarity, separate governor for Bengal, and a step toward merit-based recruitment. Long-term, introduced parliamentary forms that later influenced representative reforms, acted as a last company reform before the shift to direct Crown rule in 1858. Later reforms, e.g. Indian Councils Act 1861, built on these parliamentary practices. Very short timeline, 1853, Charter Act of 1853 passed, last company charter. 1857, Revolt of 1857, major turning point. 1858, Government of India Act 1858, company rule ended, Crown rule began. 1861, Indian Councils Act, began limited inclusion of Indians, local elites in councils. Now one-page cheat sheet, memorize fast. Last charter for East India Company, no fixed term, rule until Parliament says otherwise. Separate governor for Bengal, Governor-General freed to handle all India, Lord Dalhousie first. Legislative reforms, law member, full member, 6 extra legislative members, judges plus 4 provincial civil servants, oral debates, select committees, public sessions. Civil service, open competitive exam principle, but practical limits. Limit, Indians excluded, executive retained veto. Result, parliamentary-style practices introduced, company still in control, paved way to later Crown takeover. Simple analogies, helps memory. Company equals a private company running a school under government license. Parliament equals the government that gave and can withdraw the license. Governor-General, principal of the whole school. Governor of Bengal's, teacher of the biggest class. 1853 made that teacher separate so principal could focus on the whole school. Law member equals the law teacher given full say in decisions. Select committees, small teacher groups checking proposed rules openly. Quick self-test, answers below. 1. Who was freed from being governor of Bengal and could focus on all India? 2. What major parliamentary features were introduced into Indian lawmaking? 3. Did the Act hand real political power to Indians? Answers. 1. Governor-General, Lord Dalhousie had independent charge. 2. Oral debates, select committees, public proceedings, law member as full member. 3. No, Indians were largely excluded and executive power remained with British officials. If you want, I can now convert this into a one-page printable cheat sheet, or make a timeline poster with dates and short notes, or create flashcards for each provision with simple Q&A. Which do you want next? Perfect. Build a deepest detailed summary of the impact of the Charter Act of 1853. I'll structure it systematically so it's easy to study, remember. Charter Act of 1853. Impact. Deep detailed summary. 1. Balancing company versus Crown rule. Background. Before 1853, Britain was divided. Faction 1. Keep the East India Company ruling India. Faction 2. End company rule. Let the British Crown, Parliament, directly govern. Impact of Act. Struck a middle path. Company retained rule, but Crown got more authority in decision-making. Importance. The age between Company and Crown rule, which finally came in 1858 after the revolt. Company's tenure of rule. Earlier acts, like 1833, extended company rule for 20 years at a time. 1853 Act ended fixed renewals. Instead, Company ruled until Parliament decided otherwise. Gave direct parliamentary supremacy over India's governance. Importance: Parliament could now end company rule anytime. No guaranteed tenure. 3. Changes in Court of Directors. Court of Directors equals London-based governing board of the company. Reduced from 24, 18 members. Of these 18, 6 nominated by the Crown, British government. The Crown thus directly inserted its nominees into the company's leadership. Importance: reduced company's independence, increased Crown supervision. Number 4. End of patronage, job distribution. Earlier, directors gave jobs in India to friends, family, patronage system. Act ended this privilege, led to merit-based recruitment through competitive exams, ICS, Indian Civil Service, introduced in 1854. Importance: big step toward a professional civil service, though initially dominated by British. Number 5. Strengthening of Legislative Council. Act enlarged the Governor-General's Council for law-making purposes, created India's first functioning Legislative Council. Members included law member, judges and representatives from provinces, Bengal, Madras, Bombay, Agra. Significance: separation of executive, administration and legislative lawmaking functions advanced. Importance: first time India had a specialized lawmaking body. Number 6. Unexpected independence of Legislative Council. Though meant to be subordinate, the council began acting like a mini-parliament, questioned government, executive, criticised policies, demanded confidential papers, sometimes refused laws demanded by London authorities. Nicknamed an Anglo-Indian House of Commons. Importance: early seeds of legislative independence in India. Number 7. British reactions. Charles Wood, President Board of Control, alarmed, declared the council was not intended as India's parliament. Warned Indians not to see it as start of constitutional government. Lord Dalhousie, Governor-General of India, defended the council, saying it stayed within the rights given by the Act. Importance: showed tension between London's intention, keep control, and India's reality. Council acted independently. Number 8. Exclusion of Indians. Major defect: no Indian representatives in the Legislative Council. Laws made for Indians without Indians. Sir Bartle Frere's warning: dangerous to legislate for millions without knowing their needs, risk of rebellion. Importance: this exclusion deepened alienation of Indians, paving way for dissatisfaction, revolt, 1857, and later nationalist demands for representation. 9 other consequences. Lieutenant Governorship of Bengal, 1854. Act enabled splitting Bengal's administration for efficiency. Laid foundations for a modern civil service, helped evolve the principle of legislative discussion, laws openly debated, not secretly imposed. Final key takeaways, memory points. 1. Balance. Company continues but Crown gets foothold. 2. Tenure. Company's rule no longer fixed 20 years, Parliament decides. 3. Court of Directors, cut to 18, 6 Crown nominees. 4. Patronage, ended, competitive ICS exam. 5. Legislative Council, first separate lawmaking body. 6. Council's independence, acted like a mini-parliament. 7. British response, Charles Wood denied it was India's parliament, Dalhousie defended Council's powers. 8. Flaw, no Indians included, alienation, risk of revolt. 9. Step toward change, set the stage for end of company rule, 1858. In short, the Act of 1853 was a transition act. It weakened company independence, strengthened Crown control, ended nepotism, created a functioning legislative council, but denied Indians any voice. It sowed both seeds of modern administration, merit exams, legislation, and discontent, exclusion, revolt. Would you like me to now make this into a one-page cheat sheet, like an exam-ready table flowchart, so you can revise it at a glance? Perfect. Let me now give you a great, deepest, detailed summary of the Act for the Better Government of India, 1858, in a precise, organised, yet super-clear way. The Act for the Better Government of India, 1858, detailed summary. 1. Background and circumstances. Charter Act of 1853. Said East India Company, EIC, would hold India's territories and revenues in trust for the Crown. No fixed period of company rule. Parliament could end it any time. This left a door open for direct Crown intervention. 1857 revolt, Sepoy mutiny, First War of Independence, biggest shock to British authority in India, exposed failures of EIC rule, mismanagement, insensitivity, poor governance. Public and Parliament in Britain agreed. A trading company shouldn't rule a nation. Number 2. Defects of company rule, pointed out by Palmerston. Irresponsibility. The EIC's governing body, Court of Directors, was not answerable to Parliament, not appointed by the Crown, only elected by shareholders, who only cared about dividends, not India's welfare. Double government system, company plus board of control, complex, confusing, slow. Decisions had to pass through 2 rival authorities. Result, delays, inefficiency, irrational policies. Number 3. The political process. Lord Palmerston, PM, introduced India Bill, Feb 1858, based on ministerial responsibility. All administrators must answer to Parliament and Crown. His government fell before the bill became law. Lord Derby, new PM, and Disraeli Chancellor introduced a revised bill. After debates, Parliament passed resolutions, turned into the Act of 1858, royal assent given on the 2nd of August 1858. 4. Provisions of the 1858 Act. 1. End of company rule. EIC abolished as a governing body. Its territories, revenues and powers transferred to the British Crown. 2. Secretary of State for India, a powerful British cabinet minister created to govern India from London, had full authority over civil, military and revenue matters. 3. Council of India, 15 members to advise the Secretary of State, half chosen from old company directors, ensured continuity. 4. Governor-General, Viceroy. Governor-General of India became the Viceroy, the Crown's personal representative. First Viceroy calls Lord Canning. 5. Control structure. British Parliament now directly responsible for Indian administration. Centralised system, London controlled India. Number 5. Significance and impact. Major shift. India now ruled by the British Raj, the Crown, not the EIC. Symbolic change from Company's Raj, Crown's Raj. Issuance of Queen Victoria's Proclamation, 1858. Promised justice, non-interference in religion, equal protection of law. Assured loyalty to Indian princes, treaties honoured. Opened services to Indians, but through competitive exams, in practice still restricted. Strengthened bureaucracy and central control. Marked the formal beginning of the British Empire in India, the Raj. Number 6. Cause-effect flow. 1853. Parliament gave itself right to take India anytime. 1857 revolt. Exposed companies' failures. Demand for change. 1858 Act. Abolished company rule. Started direct Crown rule. Result. Beginning of the British Raj, 1858 to 1947. Number 7. Core takeaways, 5 points for revision. 1. Company rule abolished. Crown took control. 2. Secretary of State for India created with a Council of India. 3. Governor-General became Viceroy, Crown's direct representative. 4. Double government ended, direct accountability to Parliament. 5. Start of British Raj, India officially part of the British Empire. In one line, the 1858 Act ended the East India Company's irresponsible rule after the 1857 revolt, abolished double government, and brought India under direct Crown rule through the Secretary of State and Viceroy, marking the birth of the British Raj. Would you like me to now prepare a 1-page visual cheat sheet, flowchart plus keywords, so you can glance at it for exams and remember everything instantly? Perfect. You want a deepest, most detailed summary of the provisions of the Government of India Act 1858, but written in simplest, crystal-clear English, like a one-stop master note. Here it is. Government of India Act 1858. Provisions, detailed summary. Number 1. End of Company's rule, Crown takes over. The Act ended the East India Company's rule in India. India would now be governed directly by the British Crown, Queen King. This change happened because of the revolt of 1857, which showed that company rule had failed. Secretary of State fate for India. London, the real boss. A new cabinet minister was created. Secretary of State for India. He controlled all Indian affairs from London. He was very powerful. All powers of the old Court of Directors and Board of Control were given to him. He made decisions in the name of the Crown. Think of him as the CEO of India, sitting in London. Number 3. Council of India advisors. The Secretary of State had a council of 15 members to help him. 8 members were chosen by the Crown, British ruler. 7 members were chosen by the East India Company's directors, as a leftover privilege. At least half the members must have worked in India for 10 years and must not have been away for more than 10 years. Members stayed in office as long as they behaved properly. They could only be removed if both Houses of Parliament asked the Crown. Council equals advisers only. They gave suggestions, but the Secretary of State could ignore them. Number 4. Abolition of double government. Earlier, under Pitt's India Act 1784, there was a double government in London. Court of Directors, company managers, Board of Control, British government supervisors. This system caused confusion. The Act abolished this system. Now there was only one authority, the Secretary of State. Clear, single line of command. Number 5. Governor-General becomes Viceroy. In India, the Governor-General got a new title, Viceroy, meaning Vice-King, or representative of the Crown. He was now the direct representative of the British monarch in India. His prestige and status increased, though his actual legal powers did not change much. Example, earlier he was like a chief manager. Now he was the Queen's ambassador in India. Number 6. Division of patronage, job power. Patronage equals power to give jobs. This power was now shared between the Crown in England, the Secretary of State with his council, the Indian authorities, viceroy, governors, etc. No single authority controlled all appointments. 7. Civil services reforms. Jobs in the covenanted civil service, later called Indian Civil Service, ICS, would now be given by open competition exams. Exams would be conducted in London by the Civil Service Commissioners. No more favouritism or recommendations from company directors. In theory, Indians could sit for the exams, but because they were held in London and had age restrictions, it was difficult for most Indians at first. Step toward a professional bureaucracy. 8. Secretary of State as a corporate body. The Secretary of State was legally made a corporate body, meaning he could own property, sign contracts, sue or be sued in courts, both in England and India. Perfect. Let's now list most detailed summary of the government 1858. I'll make it precise, systematic and cheat sheet style so you can revise quickly but also understand the depth. Government of India Act 1858, detailed summary. 1. Background, cause. Revolt of 1857 exposed weaknesses of East India Company's administration. People lost faith in the company's rule. The British Parliament decided Queen Victoria should directly control India. Hence, the Government of India Act 1858 was passed. Key point, end of company's rule, beginning of Crown's direct rule. Number 2. Main provisions. A. End of company rule. East India Company abolished. Court of Directors and Board of Control, the two bodies managing Indian affairs, were abolished. Dual government system, introduced by Pitt's India Act 1784, ended, meaning no middleman, only the Crown in charge. India governed in the name of the Crown. India was to be ruled directly in Queen Victoria's name. Symbolically important, shift of power from a private company to the British monarchy. C. Secretary of State for India. A new office was created in Britain, Secretary of State for India. Powers, complete control over Indian administration. Member of British Cabinet, responsible to British Parliament. He was assisted by a council of 15 members, advisory body. First Secretary of State, Lord Stanley. Importance, India's future decisions were now made in London, not in India. D. Governor-General and Viceroy. The Governor-General remained the head of administration in India. New title created, Viceroy, representative of the Crown. Same person held both titles. Viceroy acted as direct link between Crown and Indian princes. First Viceroy equals Lord Canning. Symbolism, Viceroy's personal presence in India. #E. Drawn. The controversial annexation policy was ended. Princes could adopt heirs and continue their rule. Condition, they must accept British suzerainty, supremacy. This was in print after the 1857 revolt. F. Indian Civil Service, ICS. The Act provided for creation of a centralised civil service, controlled by Secretary of State. Recruitment mostly favoured Europeans, but later exams were open to Indians. ICS became the steel frame of British rule. #G. Appointments. Viceroy and governors of provinces were now appointed by the Crown, not the Company, ensured Crown's full control over top officials. Number 3. Impact and significance. 1. End of Company Rule 1600 to 1858. 2. Direct rule of the Crown began 1858 to 1947. 3. Centralisation of power. British Parliament and Secretary of State in London had ultimate authority. 4. Indian princes pacified by withdrawal of doctrine of lapse but still under British control. 5. Created the post of Viceroy, which became the most powerful symbol of British power in India. 6. Laid foundation for Indian civil service, which governed India efficiently but excluded most Indians for decades. 7. Marked a new phase of colonial rule, from commercial exploitation direct imperial governance. 4. Key personalities. Queen Victoria, monarch in whose name India was governed. Lord Stanley, first Secretary of State for India. Lord Canning, first Viceroy of India, also last Governor-General of the Company. 5. One-page cheat sheet, memory capsule. Why? Revolt of 1857 showed Company's failure. Who rules now? Crown, Queen Victoria. Company, abolished. Bodies abolished. Court of Directors, Board of Control, dual government. New power in London, Secretary of State for India plus 15-member council. New power in India, Governor-General Viceroy first, Lord Canning. Doctrine of lapse, withdrawn. Princes allowed heirs, but under British supremacy. Civil service, created under Crown's control. Appointments? Viceroy and governors appointed by Crown. Significance, end of Company rule, start of Crown rule, foundation for centralised British Raj. This is the deepest, most precise, systematic summary you'll need. It works for revision, exams, and understanding. Do you want me to now make a timeline-style chart, flow diagram, that visually shows the shift? Company, Crown, Secretary of State, Viceroy for easy recall? Got it. You want the impact of the Government of India Act 1858 in a single-page cheat sheet that is precise, systematic, and complete. The best possible version for instant recall. Here it is. Impact of the Government of India Act 1858, one-page cheat sheet. Legislative Council role, only advisory, no real decision-making power. Finance, not allowed to discuss taxes, budgets, or money matters. Indians could be nominated, but no legal guarantee, no statutory provision. Decentralization, some legislative power Madras presidencies. They could make law, but main power stayed with the centre, Governor-General plus Crown. Governor-General's powers. Ordinary could issue rules, laws anytime. Approval made the Governor-General supremely powerful. Overall impact created a highly centralized system of governance. London, Secretary of State, Parliament equals supreme control. Governor-General, Viceroy equals Crown's powerful representative. Councils, provinces, very limited powers. Indians had no real role in administration. Memory capsule, ultra short. Council equals advisory only, no finance talk. Indians optional, not guaranteed. Bombay and Madras, some law powers. Governor-General equals absolute via ordinance. System equals highly centralized under Crown. This is your exam-ready, one-page impact sheet. Short, sharp, and complete. Do you also want me to make a side-by-side comparison chart of before 1858 Company rule versus after 1858 Crown rule? That would make the check at a glance. Got it. You want a deepest, most detailed yet simplest summary of the criticism of the Government of India Act 1858. I'll give it in a systematic structure. Context, meaning, main criticisms, deeper explanation with examples, overall conclusion. Criticism of the Government of India Act 1858, deep summary. 1. Background. Before 1858, India was ruled by the East India Company, but the British government in London was already interfering and controlling its actions. The revolt of 1857 shook Britain. People blamed the company for misrule. So, in 1858, the Government of India Act was passed, company abolished, power transferred to the British Crown. On the surface, it looked like a big shift, but critics argued it was just a formality, because Britain had already been controlling India behind the scenes for decades, since at least 1813. 2. Main criticisms. A. Only a formal change, not a real one. The Act only changed the label from Company to Crown. In reality, the Crown's authority was already strong before 1858. Thus, the Act was like changing the signboard of a shop without changing the owner. B. Company was already dead. As a political ruler, the East India Company had lost its governing power much earlier. The Act only gave it a decent burial, officially removing its meaningless role. Example, a business that stopped operating long ago but still had its name board. Closing it formally doesn't change reality. C. Britain finally dropped the puppet show. Before 1858, the British government was like a ventriloquist using the company as a puppet doll to pretend the company was ruling. After 1858, Britain openly admitted it was ruling India. Critics say this only removed the disguise. It didn't improve Indian representation or power. D. Parliament became lazy, complacent. Parliament felt safe because the Secretary of State for India was now responsible and would report to them. But this created complacency. Parliament stopped actively monitoring Indian affairs. Earlier, with the company, Parliament at least asked questions. Now they trusted one minister and looked away. E. Too much trust in men on the spot. British officials living in India, Governor-General, viceroys and civil servants, got more practical freedom to act. Because Parliament in London stopped strict checks, decisions made locally were rarely questioned. This allowed misuse of power and sometimes harsh policies against Indians. F. No real benefit for Indians. Despite the big announcement, Indians were still excluded from decision-making. A few Indians could be nominated to councils, but they had no real voice. The Act did not bring democracy, participation, or rights for Indians. Nub 3. Deeper meaning of the criticism. Form versus reality. The form company was replaced by the Crown, but reality, British dominance, exclusion of Indians, stayed. Illusion of reform. It looked like Britain was taking responsibility after 1857, but in practice it just centralised power under one minister. Parliamentary weakness. By centralising responsibility in one secretary, Parliament actually reduced its own checks and balances. Trust in bureaucracy. India was now run like a bureaucratic empire by officials in London and governors in India, with no democratic accountability to Indians. Number 4. Examples to understand easily. Signboard analogy. A shop changes its board from company store to Crown store. But the same managers run it, customers face the same treatment, and prices don't change. Only the nameplate changes. Ventriloquist analogy. Earlier, the British government was speaking through the company, puppet. After 1858, it just spoke directly, but the voice, the message, and the power were the same. School analogy. Suppose the student council, company, runs your school, but in reality, the principal, Crown, already controls everything. After years, they announced the principal now officially runs the school. Did anything change for the students? No. Number 5. Conclusion of criticism. The Act of 1858 was not revolutionary. It was mainly a legal and symbolic adjustment to cover up the death of the East India Company. It reassured the British public that order was restored, but Parliament's control weakened, less active supervision. Officials in India gained more unchecked power. Indians remained powerless in their own administration. Critics say the Act buried the company, but it did not solve India's governance problems. It only rebranded British imperial rule. Tac 6. One-page bullet summary, cheat sheet. Criticism of the Government of India Act 1858. 1. Only formal change. Crown already controlled India. Act just made it official. 2. Company already dead. Act only gave it a decent burial. 3. Puppet show ended. Britain dropped company disguise, admitted direct rule. 4. Parliament relaxed, felt safe with Secretary of State, reduced supervision. 5. Men on the spot. Local British officials gained unchecked power. 6. Indians excluded. No real role for Indians. Councils were symbolic. Core idea. Act 1858 was a cosmetic reform. It replaced the mask, company, with the face, Crown. But the power structure and Indian exclusion stayed the same. Would you like me to now convert this summary into a quick revision chart diagram, like a mind map or flow chart, so you can memorize it in under 2 minutes? Perfect. Let's make a deep, detailed, yet simple summary of the whole passage you gave me. I'll break it into clear headings, bullets, and examples so you can use it both for deep understanding and quick revision. Ta. Detailed summary. Circumstances leading to the Act of 1858. Nuck 1. Background. The Government of India Act 1858 was passed after the revolt of 1857, also called the First War of Independence. It was supposed to bring changes in how India was governed. But the Act only changed the home government, British government in London. It did not change the actual administrative system in India. Example, like changing the managers in the company's head office, London, but not changing the staff working in the branch office, India. Need for change after the revolt. The revolt of 1857 showed the British that their way of ruling was dangerous. They had been making laws for millions of Indians without asking them. They only discovered whether Indians liked those laws or not when there was a rebellion. Lesson: this method must end. Example: if parents keep making rules for kids without asking their opinion, they will only know kids are unhappy when kids shout or break things. 3. British realization. Safety valve needed. Sir Bartle Frere, Governor of Bombay, gave a warning. Ruling without listening to Indians is like building pressure in a cooker without a whistle. Sooner or later it will explode, like the revolt. A deliberative council, a place where Indians could speak and share opinions, was needed as a safety valve. Example: cooker whistle, council for Indians. Without it, cooker explodes, it was revolt. Number 4. Indian views. Indians also expressed the same opinion. Syed Ahmed Khan, a famous reformer, said, "The revolt happened mainly because there was no contact between rulers and the ruled. The British never talked with Indians or considered their views, so mistrust and anger grew." Example: a boss who never talks to workers will face angry strikes one day. Number 5. Debate on representation in 1858. In 1858, the idea of giving Indians representation in legislative councils, lawmaking bodies, was discussed. But 2 problems were raised. 1. If Indians were given only a few seats, it would be useless. 2. If they were given many seats, people would say the British acted out of fear of the revolt, not fairness. So, the British decided to postpone giving Indians a role in lawmaking. Example: after a protest, if a company quickly promotes many workers, workers may think, boss is not kind, he's just scared. 6. Final decision. In 1858, the British decided no immediate inclusion of Indians in lawmaking. Let the situation settle down first. Thus, the Act of 1858 only changed control of India in London from East India Company to the British Crown, but inside India the system remained unchanged. Super clear takeaways. The revolt of 1857 exposed the gap between rulers and ruled. British realized, we need to hear Indian voices or else more revolts will come. Some British Frere and Indians, Syed Ahmed Khan, openly said this. In 1858, the idea of Indian representation was discussed but postponed due to political fears. So the Act of 1858 brought change in London, not real change. In short, the revolt of 1857 acted like a wake-up call. It showed the dangers of ruling without listening. The British understood the need to involve Indians, but out of fear and hesitation, they delayed it. Thus, the Government of India Act 1858 made changes in home government, London, but left Indian administration untouched. Would you like me to now turn this into a cheat sheet, visual with boxes and arrows, so you can revise everything in 2 minutes before exams?